Hey, everybody, welcome to the Unconventional Therapist Guide to Nothing. My name is Dave, and I'm joined with my co host, Greg. Greg, how are you doing today, dude?
I am doing good. I like how we're starting to do this in the morning or, roughly morning time.
Rough.
It's like more energy, more awake.
I feel more awake than when we do it at night.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
last week was our first time doing it in the morning, and it had a, it felt better conversation wise. So I was like, let's try this again.
Maybe we'll do
It's
this going forward.
just
Who knows?
scheduling
Right?
wise is the tough part.
It's a tough part. Yeah, yeah, it is. But that's okay. So,
Yeah.
Dave, today we have a kind of a big subject. We should probably jump right into it. But that being said, I wanted to ask your thoughts on this because this is kind of something we never really talked about with each other.
Is
So when
it
I
is it
say to
about
you,
our Patreon?
I'm glad you brought that up. No,
So
it doesn't seem like anybody's talking about that. And
no,
maybe we should get,
we
a
gotta
little more
we
focus on that.
we
Come on
did get
down to the
a
Patreon. When people hear Patreon, I think the main thing they hear is pay, but it doesn't have to start like that. You just kind of get in there, become part of the community. It's free to start, and then
or pay or
once it's
pay if
worth
you
it. And then
want.
once we get things like really cooking, it's really gonna be worth it, and you're gonna want to pay. You're gonna be
So
asking to
so
pay.
this week we got two free members, Bo and Maggie, and then we got Josh Constantino,
Hmm.
who became one of our tier members and is now going to get access to the bonus episodes, which I look forward to hearing his thoughts about. So thank you to everybody joining, and we appreciate you and can't wait to continue to grow this community and have conversations on there and
It's
discuss
great.
random
And
things.
Constantino, I've known for, I mean, geez, I don't know how to even say this. 20 years? Probably haven't talked to him in 18, but
Oh,
still,
wow.
hey, that's
It's
kind of
great
awesome, right? So I'd love to
that
reconnect
the
with him
things that
on
connect us.
it's fun. That's awesome. I
I
look forward to
cannot wait for you and Constantinople to
that. Become best
reconnect.
friends forever.
Yes.
Constantine.
Constantine.
So Dave, anyways, when I say to you Scientology, like what comes to mind to me, it's like a little bit of a nautical term in a sense. I think of people in like naval outfits for whatever reason. But
Really?
what comes to your mind?
Cult,
Okay. That was
right?
quick. Yeah.
I mean, it's the thing that we've all been taught to know at this point. When it first came out, I wouldn't have said that. I would have thought science fiction because that's how, I always was like understood it to be this thing that like, oh, this science fiction author created this thing.
Hmm.
But now it's transformed into it's almost synonymous with cult.
Right. And there's probably a lot of good reasons for that,
And I'm
right?
not saying it because I believe it to be a cult. I'm just saying that's what I associate it with today because
So
of
I
all the
think that's
talks
what's
around it.
most interesting about this topic is because it does beg the question, what separates a religion from a cult? Which I think is a really
It
interesting
reminds me of
question.
the conversation similar to when we were talking about Jehovah's Witness.
Hmm.
I mean, I'm
But
not saying they're the same, but I am saying it's another conversation you can have with someone and, possibly have two different opinions about it. Possibly.
or is it like even if it's a cult, it's a very successful cult, right? And I think there's a few things that come into mind, like longevity for a cult. I don't, that's when I think it starts to get into religious territory. I mean, if the charismatic leader is replaced by another charismatic leader and it sort of continues, but then you have to ask, is there like some isolation or is there like a complete devotion necessary? There's a lot of things that go into it. But before we get into that, let's talk that like Scientology is a set of beliefs and practices developed by L. Ron Hubbard, which we'll talk about a little bit more. Who I often feel, Dave, you brought up the fact that he was a science fiction writer, and I think he was like to play make believe quite a bit. And I feel before his death, he probably said to himself more often than not, I think this is getting way out of hand. Do you get that sense where he's like looking around him and he's like, are we living out my novels? Is that what's happening right
Why do you
now?
think he had that self reflection versus thinking like, wow, this really went well?
I don't know because I feel like all right, it's like it's
So
almost
you're
like
looking at him like a sympathetic character in this
mm,
story.
yeah, I don't think he intended. I think that on paper, maybe he had some good views for this, or maybe he had some optimistic views for this. And then, like everything else, when people get their hands on it, it becomes corrupted and everything. Although I do feel like I didn't know L. Ron as a person, but I think that he probably, he's human. So I think as he's watching this turn into this thing that's like slipping out of his hands, and there's a leadership, and it's bigger than he can ever imagine, he must have thought like, ooh, what have I
As he's
done?
watching this show, hearing about this.
I
No,
know, I know, I know.
no,
I haven't.
it's
Or no,
interesting because there are some direct quotes from him that about that make it seem like he's maybe not the sympathetic character that you're portraying him to be.
hmm
But if you ask someone who's a Scientologist, they will deny those quotes, from my understanding.
Yeah. So
So I don't know what side the truth lies on. I mean, I would imagine there's probably more truth to the side that doesn't necessarily align directly with, like, if this is true, all my beliefs are in shambles. Very much like the mother, what was the one we just recently did for Mother's Day?
m-
The
Mother
Love
Earth.
is One cult.
Yeah.
Similar to that. Like, you have to sort of ignore certain things that are maybe blaring right in your face.
Or yeah, like, do you think he believed? I guess the bigger question is, do these cult members or religious leaders, I mean, depending on how you're viewing this, believe their own dogma and their own
Yeah,
narrative? Does he really believe this stuff? Because,
sure.
it's strange because it's this religious movement that posits humans, and all of us are just kind of these immortal spiritual beings, and that through specific practices we can achieve spiritual enlightenment and overcome past traumas. So like that sounds good on paper, right? I think and that's why like a lot of these ideas are okay, and then it just starts getting a little bit weird and alienist and just strange. But
You know,
Dave, why don't you get a little bit into Elron, what this guy was all about?
well, I just before we get into the episode
Yeah.
too heavy, I want to make a few disclaimers. First off, we're going to come at this from an approach of understanding that we're talking about Scientology as its development and what its intended use is, and not saying directly that it's a cult. Neither of us are saying that directly. We are just kind of acknowledging the arguments made against it because that's how we formulate our discussions.
hmm
Secondly, this is a you know less than an hour probably summary, so there is only so much we are going to be able to encapsulate. If we miss something and you know about it, you can definitely let us know, but please do not try to call us out on things that we miss, because like, we're acknowledging there's going to be stuff we missed. We did not have a sufficient amount of time to do a full history of this and up from start to finish here.
Right. And there's always in every subject. And just to remind people, it's almost like we're reminding them like we're gonna get some of this wrong. But yeah, that's what we do. We kind of like talk about what we feel is interesting about certain subjects, and hopefully it encourages you to do a deeper dive.
Yeah.
And that's just like the idea of this podcast. That's what it's
And
always been,
the
the idea
reason
of this podcast.
for me even saying any of this too is, like, I'm listening to other you know people doing research on it, trying to get my own research done, and I'm hearing them talk, and I'm like, they're clearly they're all missing stuff as well. Like,
hmm
nobody's going to be able to get all this 100% accurate. But one thing you didn't mention, Greg, when you were talking about, like, kind of the formulation of this, it's also under the premise that man is
Good.
humans are generally good. And I
Yeah.
think that's a really interesting way to start this whole thing, right? He is coming at this, not that we're born in sin, not that we're, devious creatures. We are generally good, but we do have the power of choice, right? And, we are, there was a lot of other stuff that we're going to uncover, but I just thought that was an interesting way to start this, because it does start it off on a rather positive note for him to, like, look at humans as
See,
being
I think the
generally
opposite.
good. Okay.
When I read that, I think the opposite. And I feel that if your belief system is that you're essentially perfect, or you were essentially perfect, and now you've just marred it up a little bit and you've messed things up, and the reality is you can never become perfect again, but you have to live your life trying. I don't know that. I don't know. I guess I see both sides of that. I do almost like the idea that like you're born with like as sort of nothing, and you have to build whatever you're going to become,
See, we've read
and you're
it two
always
totally
net
different
positive.
ways. We've read it two totally different ways. So
Yeah.
you read it as like I'm a blank slate when I'm born, and anything that happens to me after kind of tarnishes me. And I read it as we're all born good. Like our intentions are generally going to be good, but like obviously we experience things that causes us pain and trauma and might impact our ability to continue to make choices that are good.
Yeah. Both good.
Two different readings. Interesting. One wrong, one right. Well, like, there's some. Just kidding. Not just kidding. All right. So Lafayette Ron Hubbard, aka L. Ron Hubbard, LK, aka L. Ron Heasy, born in 1911 in Tilden, Nebraska. He attended George Washington University, studying civil engineering, as most religious leaders do,
Hmm.
and left after 2 years. Later, having success in writing science fiction stories for what they called pulp magazines in the 1930s. Also, what most religious leaders do. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, quite the opposite trajectory than most, I would say. I don't know if Martin Luther was doing that, but
He was writing.
so like I was thinking about that. How would we best describe pulp magazines to like younger listeners who maybe don't have like the familiar? I mean, that's not even really something that we're super familiar with. They're like,
Trashy?
yeah, right. Like in comparison to other prints that are
Hmm.
out, right?
Almost like throwaway. Very cool, actually. I like pulp and I like penny dreadfuls. I think all that stuff is like very cool. But it wouldn't have been like considered literature,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, in a day and age where we have like pressings of magazines of that like touch on anything and everything, it'd be like that alt version that's
Yeah.
like kind of like super maybe independent or something or kind of underground, something like that, I guess. So he served in the U.S. Naval Reserves. There you go, Greg. You must
All
like
right.
that.
Reserves, but whatever.
Yeah, whatever. During World War II, and he later claimed to have healed himself of several serious war-related ailments. I heard that he might have stayed underwater too long or something like that, right? Using techniques he explained in the 1950 book Dianetics, the Modern Science of Mental Health. Did I say that right?
Yeah,
Dianetics?
Dianetics.
Dianetics, sorry,
Yeah.
Dianetics. Dianetics, the Modern Science of Mental Health. That is a very important book. We'll come back to that later. The book's concepts of Dianetics explained that every human um, individual has an analytic mind, which is normally in charge of making daily decisions and judgments necessary for survival. However, during times of stress, pain, or other trauma, it is the reactive mind that takes over.
Which is
So,
solid.
well, yeah, and he's borrowing from other formula, theories, and I mean that's
Yeah.
very. I was reading something they were saying like that's very Freudian, almost like
All
id
Freudian.
and
Yeah.
ego, right? It's also it's also scientific, just not using scientific terms because we're
Right.
basically talking about our rational mind versus like our amygdala firing up.
Right,
And
right. We're talking about like the sympathetic nervous system taking
yes,
over in a traumatic
100%.
experience.
He's
Yeah.
just giving it different names, which I mean everybody does. So
Hmm.
no shade on to him for that. So Hubbard's idea of mental science suggests that the lasting scars from those negative experiences on the reactive mind are known as engrams. And to rid of these engrams, Hubbard prescribed a new type of therapeutic process called auditing.
Yeah.
So, again, he's not really reinventing the wheel, but I know in this time period in the 1950s, this might have felt earth like, groundbreaking or really intriguing. But he's using a lot of terminology. He's just using different words to concepts that today, today's day and age, we understand to be trauma. He's
See,
talking about trauma.
it definitely like trauma informed Buddhism slash Freudian, like just using and then just switching terms essentially.
Yes.
It's all ripped
Yes.
off.
Really. So Dianetics became a bestseller. The book I'm talking about, because mainly that post World War II audience was really receptive to it.
Hmm.
Maybe they all experienced a bunch of trauma and they, kind of just hit the right way. The same as, I'm sure a lot of stuff after Vietnam became way more relevant in this field. So in 1952, he introduces the e-meter, which we're going to talk about later, and that marks kind of this transition from Dianetics to Scientology. Uh, and Scientology being the Latin for scio, meaning study, and Greek logos, meaning knowing.
Mhm.
And it changes the framework from just a mental health thing to now it's a religious movement. So
Yeah.
in February of 18th of 1954, the incorporation papers were filed in Los Angeles for the Church of Scientology of California, the first Scientologist organization. And he described Scientology as a way to address mental health issues and move towards a more religious perspective on the human condition.
So what do you
Uh,
think about that? Like as you stands right there. So far this sounds like
Solid. It's
solid,
it's
right?
interesting because it mixes two things that you know science, mental health, well, multiple things: science, mental health, and religion and spirituality. It mixes all these things in one. This is probably something people are into and looking for. And I think it would hit even today if it was just the right, combination
Hmm.
of things that felt relevant. So I see how this popularizes. I can understand it, especially for people who are maybe seeking this because they feel like they have all this trauma, right?
Yeah, and for people that it's worked for, you can see how they would want to involve other people in it.
Yeah.
Because so you can see how this kind of starts from a good place, I think, is my point.
Yes. So his legacy is viewed differently by his followers and his critics, obviously. Supporters see him as visionary, while critics, including former members, have called it a cult. Despite this, his writings, particularly on Dianetics, remain super popular, and the Church of Scientology continues to attract members despite his passing away in 1986.
Yeah, which is it was an interesting fact to me. I didn't realize he was gone for so long. It's like he didn't get to see this thing really take off into what it is.
Sure, which
Okay.
could be good or bad. um, he also created programs like Narcanon
Hmm.
for drug rehabilitation and applied scholastics for education. Thousands of writings and lectures on Dianetics and Scientology. Yeah, he was just very involved and busy for a long period of time. His followers referred to him as Ron, and um, yeah, they seem to really appreciate him.
They did. And they probably, like reading all those stories and those, stories somehow become reality to some people. It's really strange as it goes on. But let's talk about Dianetics for a little bit because I think that book it's the beginning and it's the starter of all. And it's just this, it's pseudoscience in a sense, right? Because it's combining science and like philosophy and just Ron's ideas. Um, and it's all practiced around the human mind. And it was initially conceived as a treatment for people who were experiencing traumas, but later incorporated into the actual religion. And like we said, Dianetics says that there's a reactive mind and that records negative experiences. And traumas, we would call them engrams, they would call them. And these engrams can be addressed through a process called auditing to alleviate emotional and um, mental distress. And like auditing is just simply going back and thinking about, you know, the times in your life where things may have gotten off track, things that you have done that you're ashamed of, embarrassed of, and confronting those things. Like either you doing something bad or something bad happening to you. But it's always embarrassing. And then later on, I don't know, Dave, if you ever like got into this, but they would record people
Yeah,
during auditing sessions.
yeah,
And this is people revealing their deepest, darkest, most depraved secrets, like the even from things they've done to things they've thought. And you can imagine how embarrassing that would be to have that on tape. And that's kind of used as leverage as time goes on. So the core idea of the book, Dianetics, is the mind, the analytical mind, is should be function perfectly. Actually, it does function perfectly. And then there's a relative mind, which is, I guess you would call like yourself, your flaws. But this relative mind is the part of you that records these negative experiences as engrams. And these engrams, they describe an unconscious recording of painful or traumatic experiences, and they negatively impact your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. So without these experiences, Scientology believes that you would just you wouldn't just be like nothing almost, or without, it's not like you're something to be molded. You'd be perfect without these experiences, right? So auditing is interesting because this is the process that they use. This involves communicating with a person to locate and address these engrams using, they use like this meter, electronic resistance meter, and I guess they put it like sort of like pointed at you or put it on your head, almost like the Ghostbusters would use if they were finding, if they were trying to discern if you were a ghost or not. And if the meter goes up, they're like, all right, we'll dig into that a little bit more. And that's like something that's going to, I don't know, Dave. Like it's kind of like confusing. So you sit there and you talk about all the worst things that happened to you, and they really want you to reflect on that. And I don't know what kind of state that puts someone in. I know that it's important in our line of work to kind of like dig into the negative and what's wrong with me and why am I the way I am. But I often find with people that that's not the most useful thing. I'm starting to like lean into that kind of idea with my work. It's like, why am I depressed? Well, if you wake up in the morning and you feel depressed, you come talk about it. You wake up in the morning, you feel anxious, you want to like your brain starts thinking like, why am I anxious? Why am I depressed? And then by spending so much time trying to figure out why that's the case, you're spending way more time with depression instead of like, I don't know, for me it would be like values. Like how do I want to feel? What do I want to be doing? And does this like feeling or emotion really need to be getting in the way? So I feel like this auditing process really kind of keeps people down instead of raising them up. What do you think about that?
I think it's two separate things. It feels like what you're describing, I understand the concept that you're saying, but those are like emotions versus
Yeah.
experiences. So I
Yeah.
do think that identifying and processing of experiences can be helpful to people. It helps
No, oh,
raise
absolutely.
self-awareness.
But
Talking
to
about the fact
scour
that
your brain for negativity almost.
well, the other thing, and as we're doing this research, I'm trying to figure out where this fits in because I heard a concept prior to this whole thing that I didn't really find in some of the research I was doing, but like the past lives thing. So there's
Yeah.
also this idea that maybe some of this is like passed on from like a different life, right?
And it's your responsibility to address it,
Right.
which
Which
is a
isn't it?
strange
I
thing.
don't know how that. I honestly don't know how that plays into any of this. Scouring your brain to address things, though, digging up things. I don't know. We do kind of try to do that at times, but
Hmm.
like normally it happens in a way more natural way. But I mean, these people are also coming to him. It's they're not just they're
Experience
not
that.
just like wait like he's not seeking them out. They're
Mm.
coming to him, I would assume, or they're coming to the church because of things that are going on. Your audio went out, so I just kept talking over you.
Yeah. No, no,
What
no.
did
I'm
you say?
sorry. But how do you think this was received? Like, so received, Dianetics was received by the general population, or like, how do you think it was received by like the medical and scientific world?
Not great.
No, not great. It's ineffective and pseudoscience. But that's kind of what they would say to someone who
Anybody who's
was,
starting a new thing.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
So
mean,
I mean,
it
that's really hard
literally
to put them
means
through.
nothing. They're just always well. I think the thing that's going to throw them off, obviously, is like the confidence or the assertiveness of this whole thing.
Hmm.
It's almost like saying, no,
Oh,
this is real and this is true and this is going to be helpful to you, versus like, hey, we should probably do some, some trials here. We should do some research to see. It's like it doesn't feel like there's that period. It's like 0 to 100 of like, no, this is our new religion and we do this.
yeah. Also, the idea that this should work for everyone.
Yeah.
That's kind of a problem too. So that's kind of it with Dianetics, except that that's the building block for Scientology. But then the sort of its own unique beliefs and these rituals and the concept of an immortal spiritual being called Thetan, that stuff kind of all comes in down the road. But Dave, why don't you start talking about some of these weird, not I don't want to say weird, but weird
Strange,
spiritual beliefs, right?
strange,
Yeah.
odd, peculiar. All right. So, I mean, the first one you just said, it's Thetans. They believe that humans are immortal spiritual beings called Thetans who have forgotten their true nature through countless reincarnations. Although I don't believe they actually use the word reincarnations, I think it's just this experience that you just continue to go on in some way, shape, or form. I don't know the best way to say that. Or to be born again in different life forms is another
Mm.
way I guess you could frame it.
To me, though, like
So
what a lost feeling to just think that somewhere throughout the span of time, I've lost my identity and to find it. I mean, I have to, you got to really do some digging. That kind of locks you into Scientology for life.
it can also feel promising if you're feeling like you don't know who you are, or you don't understand why you've been struggling or feeling certain ways.
Hmm.
It's because I've lost who I am, so I got to find it.
Well,
And
yeah, I
imagine
like that
that hook.
actually. Yeah.
Imagine that hook. So Greg, you gotta when I the way that I'm trying to like understand this is I'm trying to come in to it from the perspective of that person who is looking for this. It's like anytime we've ever talked about a religion or a cult experience, those people are looking for something. It's different, it's strange, it's odd to us as outsiders who aren't looking for this thing, and it's easy for us to pass judgment. But I think when you get the true understanding is trying to put yourself in like the perspective of who would this work for?
Yeah,
Who is this
and
person walking
almost
through those doors?
all of us. I would say, I don't want to say almost all of us. I think all of us can kind of relate to that idea where sometimes it's like I just don't know where I am. I just don't know kind of know who I am.
And
And I
there's
don't know
people,
why I am the way I am. And I like,
right,
all those
right.
things,
And
all those
there's
questions.
people who will use the phrase like I feel like I was born in the wrong time,
Hmm.
right? That's probably a person that's like, oh yeah, I must have had a past life that, this I'm more connected to.
I
So
sometimes feel like that.
yeah, I sometimes feel like you're like that. I
Yeah.
always called you a newsie for a long time. I was like,
Yeah, no, I feel like
you
I
were a
should have been
born
born in
newsie.
either the 30s or like I know like the Lord was just been watching The Lord of the Rings with my kids and I'll get off this real quick. But like I know that's not a time frame, but I feel like that setup would have been cool.
It's not a time frame, huh?
Not really. Middle Earth at some period.
Middle Ages,
I was gonna say if I was gonna give it a year, I would say 400.
AD, BD, BC, BT.
AD, which there is an actual AD in Scientology, and do you know
Yeah,
what? So
yeah.
after
Wait,
Dianetics,
yeah.
that's
After Dianetics, yeah,
so
yeah.
their time frame, the time frame for Scientology starts in the 1950s.
Right.
Wild. Now that's
Um,
wild.
the next term here is auditing, which I know you've already kind of covered. Um, so it's typically a one-on-one session, except for with the exception of Sunday service group audits, which
Hmm.
must be a blast
An issue.
and an issue. It's group therapy. What?
Only
Um,
like everyone's like, yeah, dude, you're the worst. That happens. It's bad. But go ahead. Go ahead.
so the auditor will set up questions to ask with the goal of helping individuals locate areas of distress. And an area of focus here is to clear the reactive mind, which is where the memories of pain and trauma, as we already mentioned, are held.
Hmm.
And, or those engrams, basically. This is sort of like confession in the Catholic Church, except you're not seeking forgiveness. You're basically trying to locate trauma and I guess clear it in a way, like get rid of it.
Hmm.
So also of note, like you mentioned, the auditors record the information offered. So obviously they learn our deepest, darkest secrets. And as you mentioned, obviously that's a problem. Um, but I mean, yeah, I mean, in the Catholic Church, obviously they're not recording our confessions. We hope.
Mm-mm. I
So
hope
that
not.
that's kind of what makes it different because we obviously tell our deepest, darkest secrets there. But I mean, not to be critical here, but it's also kind of weird that we tell our deepest, darkest secrets to a person behind a wall and who's basically passing judgment on us for those by telling us like, oh, that's worth this many Hail Marys and an off
Right,
father.
right. I was gonna
Um,
say like the Hail
it's
Mary
very,
thing.
it's all judgmental. This feels less judgmental.
Although I will say, I think there is some value to having to report what you've done to another human being in order to be forgiven for it. I think that that's an
Do you,
interesting yet valuable
a long
process.
time ago, I mentioned we should do an episode on, I think it's called the apology line, which was, I want to say 80s or 90s.
Mhm.
There was like a anonymous hotline you could call, and there was a whole podcast about the person that started this and how this went.
Oh, I
And
remember
people
this.
eventually were calling and, you know, confessing to murders
Yeah.
almost. Um, Super interesting concept of this idea to like be able to get something off your chest, which I think is a lot of what confession offers.
Hmm.
I think this offers that in some way too, is just maybe the practices around it feel like there might be some alternative motive.
Yeah. As time goes on.
Right. So in this process, they use the electropsychometer or the e-meter. This is referred to as a religious artifact that is used to measure extremely low voltages occurring in the psyche. They send small electrical currents through the body and back to the device in order to locate areas of concern or engrams. The auditor asks more questions aimed at eliminating the issues and continues the e-meter process until the concern has diminished. And the goal is to eventually clear everyone of all their engrams, making the person an OT or an operating thetan.
So you can imagine what it must be like to be sharing your deepest, darkest secrets, and someone's just holding like this buzzer to your head. It's almost like you're playing that game
So
Taboo and just waiting for someone to buzz at you.
I always thought that there was a device that had like handles that they would grab. And like those machines that shock you when you hold the
Mm.
handles and you see if you can hold on. I always envisioned it like that. And I don't know where I got that image from. I feel like that was something that's accurate, but I could be totally wrong. But whatever this is, it's quite you know, the vision in your head if you can try to imagine, being shocked, almost like small electrical currents being sent through your body as you're trying to locate these things. And I think you can get to like different levels of operating thetan. And it might be like OT7, OT5, things like
But
that.
you can imagine how that could be really kind of dark. So like here you are trying to recount this process or these dark things that happened to you or maybe that you've done or some past life has done that you're responsible for and they shock you and they can imagine how it would be like if a good auditor is like no it's darker than that, it's deeper than that, it's worse
It's
than
very
that, and it's
subjective.
like
It's too
very yeah.
subjective. It seems like, there should be, I don't even know how you would have a measurement of
It's like
how
false
much
confession
trauma.
though.
Sure.
So it puts you in a position where you have to claim things that maybe you've done or that you just haven't because you're put in that position where you have to produce something. You can't just
Sure.
have the meter on you and say, "No, I think I'm pretty good right now. I'm an operating
That's all I
thetan.
can think of today, boss.
That's all
Yeah,
I
you can't.
got. Sorry."
So after auditing, tests such as aptitude, vision, hearing, and color blindness, balance, the Oxford capacity analysis are all conducted for validation of improvement because the church's website claims that auditing can actually increase all of your abilities in those functions.
Of course.
All right. So the next term is clear and operating thetan levels. The goal is to reach the state of clear, free, and reactive mind's influence and progress through the bridge to total freedom. This is a hierarchical path of spiritual development, leading to higher states of awareness and ability as an operating thetan. I guess that's where the
Going
numbers come
clear.
in.
In the going clear term.
Yeah.
Like that's a great documentary if anybody wants to like learn way more about this.
Okay. Eight dynamics. So Scientology emphasizes the importance of survival, divided into eight classifications, including survival of self, family, groups, mankind, life forms, and physical universe, MEST, spirits and supreme beings. Ethics and justice, a system for regulating member behavior, ensuring adherence to Scientology doctrines. And you can actually find the what do we call it, the code of ethics for every individual role within the church on their website if you
Yeah. So I think now for what people have really kind of are interested in, or at least I was, is like the controversies and the criticism of Scientology. And there are quite a few. I mean, we don't need to get into them all, but it's definitely been criticized on its stance from our perspective on psychiatry and the rejection of mental health care. And I remember maybe it was on Oprah or something like that, but Tom Cruise, was really coming for what was her name? She was a child actor, The Blue Lagoon. Brooke Shields, maybe. But she was taking, antidepressants, and he's like, "Oh no, you don't have to do that." And kind of like really like, no. And you look, hey, look, we have our own sort of critiques towards, um, psychopharmaceuticals in a lot of ways, but I would never deny that they've saved a ton of lives and they work for a lot of people. So to say like, no, that's never a good tool for you is a dangerous thing. So I think that's a huge controversial issue for Scientology to be like, hey, look, if you have mental health issues, this is how you treat them and forget about the rest because that's very dangerous, I think, for its members. And they also are really popular for shunning those who are critical of the faith, as we can see with, Leah Remini and all anybody who leaves Scientology, they kind of really they you don't just leave Scientology. It's almost like the mob. You leave and then they destroy your reputation, which is kind of a terrible thing.
Yeah.
And
I
and they're
mean,
also what's
that
that?
like in their defense, aren't these people kind of destroying their reputation back? Or
So yeah, and they have a term for that, Dave. Dave, are you a Scientologist? They have a term for that, and it's called attack the attacker, and that's a policy. So they're very litigious and they aggressively attack critics. They're in tons of legal battles against their accusations of fraud and misabuse and misconduct. And for whatever reason, there's also allegations of human trafficking and forced labor. And I think for me, like one of the bigger cases was, and this would be an episode on its own, but do you know anything about Shelley Miscavige, the wife of the new or the current leader, David
no.
Miscavige?
Mm-mm.
So she used like this kind of big figure in Scientology, and there's rumors that she went against David and did some of his teachings and maybe like kind of like challenged power a little bit. And so now she's disappeared and no one's seen her publicly since 2007. And tons of people have written police reports and asked the LAPD to kind of really get involved in this. But they consider the case closed and they dismiss claims that anyone's missing. Now Scientology has access to a ton of money, and people think that there's like a payoff there, and that's like that actress Leah Remini kind of comes in really big for saying like what happened to Shelley Miscavige. A
Mhm.
lot of people are wondering that, and it's like one of those weird things where it's like, okay, if she's fine, can you just like can she just show up and so everyone can kind of stop? It's almost like that thing that happened with Princess Kate, you know.
Oh, okay.
Oh, she's fine. Just show us she's fine, like so we can be quiet about it. But the fact that they're refusing to do that is strange, and it lends to this idea that something really dark happened to Shelley Miscavige. Like she went against Dave and he attacked the attacker hardcore, and now she's gone.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
In case
Allegedly.
anyone in case anybody's listening, this is all just us reporting other people's notes,
Yeah.
not our opinions.
Yeah.
We don't
My
we don't
opinion
need to.
is something weird happened, but I mean, that's just
Well,
my opinion.
for the record, everyone listening, that was Greg's opinion. I
That was
can
my
give you
opinion.
his address and where
But
you
it
can
seems
send
to have done
the legal
beautiful things for
documents.
Tom Cruise. I mean, Tom Cruise is like the most successful actor in history. Is that
Dude,
true?
I have no
It's got to
idea.
be. Name someone more successful and more recognizable than Tom Cruise.
Well, you're putting me on the spot, and as we
It's
all
hard.
know,
It's almost impossible.
Robert De Niro, Al Pacino.
Tom Cruise? I think he's on top of
Who's
that.
more recognizable than Robert De Niro?
Tom Cruise.
I don't know about that. I mean, he's very recognizable. All right,
Yeah, he's actually a
sure.
good actor. I know that's an opinion. Now that's an opinion, but whatever. All right, speaking of pop
It's
culture
kind of
things,
tarnished his reputation and his
it
credibility
has.
and his, in some capacity, his ability to probably be received for the work that he does. So even if he is a good actor, people automatically judge the films he does before he even puts them out because of
Those
this.
electrometers are like good for wrinkles, though. The guy's
Look
not
at
aging.
John Travolta, another, getting into
Big
the
one.
pop culture stuff. John Travolta, another prominent figure in the world, very notable, very
Mhm.
noticeable. tarnished his reputation pretty
It
significantly.
did. It,
The bald head
admittedly.
didn't help. Like
No. Hey, listen.
him with a bald head though does not match.
I know.
Greg, you're not John Travolta.
No. I don't have the dance moves, but I do have the
So
bald head.
I mean, there's a number of obviously of high profile celebrities.
Well, is there a number? There's like four.
Nah, there's more. Oh, geez, I didn't
I
want
mean,
to do
there's
this.
two or three super. I don't know. Do you consider Leah Remini high profile? Because I'd have to see like,
No, well, I mean, obviously, I knew of her and I know of her, but like this, I think kind of brought her into a different level of status
mhm.
because of how controversial all this was, right? When you say that, like, obviously,
Yes.
everybody loves King of Queens, but I don't know that that's on the same level of some other people. Now, oh, all right, yeah, Juliette Lewis,
Okay.
who's, I mean, her career has made a big comeback with Yellow Jackets, obviously. Uh, but she's Scientologist. It was is Katie Holmes still Scientologist?
No, she's out.
She's out. Okay.
Yeah,
I mean, this list, I don't know how accurate it is, but I got like Jada Pinkett Smith.
I could see that.
I don't know if that's accurate. So I hope, I don't want to spread false news. I have this list here has there's a ton of them I could mention. Sharon Stone, Demi
I
Moore.
can see that too. But
Are these accurate? Russell Crowe,
mm,
Elizabeth Moss. Is that true? From Handmaid's Tale?
I don't think so. Maybe. Let's put the listeners on
When
this.
when you say I don't think so, are you just going off the top of your head or are you giving
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I guess it could be true.
all right,
Maybe it's not that big of a deal anymore. Maybe we've become a little bit more accepting of it. I don't know.
I don't know. Or some, I mean, there's always the case that obviously some of these people could be former members. But I know we know John Travolta and Tom Cruise to be current members. Um, yeah, it looks like Elizabeth Moss is.
Hmm.
Interesting. I did
Dave,
not know
now
that.
let's get into this idea of let's try to separate this from like a cult versus religion point of view. So why don't you argue or get into, I'm not specifically you, but get into the arguments of like what makes Scientology a cult?
What makes it a cult?
Hmm. Like what are the sort of ideas or categories that make it a culty?
Um, well, the whole idea of secrecy,
Hmm.
control. Um, I think that that like part we were talking about with the auditing and the recording and kind of the ability to um, use that for leverage definitely has a little bit of a twist of that. So I mean, they're just very knowledgeable and involved in important things in people's lives, right?
That's right.
What else would you say, Greg?
Exploiting members, like the accounts of everyone who leaves Scientology, or for the most part, most allege being exploited, like through like financial exploitation, emotional and psychological manipulation. They also, there's a huge thing uh, isolating from outsiders. That's always a cult thing where Scientology encourages people to isolate themselves from family and friends who are specifically not a part of the church. So that kind of that always strengthens like a cult's control when you've pulled them away from people who are going to push up against it.
Right, right.
And
And then
you
there's
know,
the that kind of like brainwashing accusations
brainwashing is
that are
always
made.
culty.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
can't really brainwash these days and it not be that.
It's like no one's brainwashing for good. It's like what
It's like
happened
they
to that?
forgot about what real good brainwashing does, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. My brain's been washed, I think. So I don't know. But there are like religious components to this thing. Like it's got its structure and its beliefs. So it's like the hierarchical structure and a set of fixed beliefs and practices and you could almost consider what L. Ron Hubbard, like those books and Dianetics scripture.
Like who hears that the creator of this religion is a science fiction author,
Hmm.
and then says, I wonder, that sounds like a really like good church right there. Like that's the kind of church I want to belong to, one that's created by a science fiction author.
Well, what they did was it said L. Ron Hubbard, science fiction author, and then they just scribbled out the fiction.
Yeah, right.
You know, it became
Like
science, it became
as
religion, it became philosophy. It's
as
wild.
as soon as someone would inform me of that piece of knowledge, I'd be like, I think I'm going to go a different route.
Yeah, yeah,
This isn't for me.
yeah. What else can we talk to? Kind of like point to sort of, I don't know, religious underpinnings.
Well, this. All right, as we were talking about this, and not so much cult, but like, just like what it could have been versus what it did become. He created like a home for it. He created like like it made it like there's a church for it and all that stuff. It could have just been its own theoretical model that he like made like this new wave, new era like
Yeah.
psychology, right? He
And let
could have
people
just
bend
kept it
it
at
and let
that,
people kind of work with it.
or he could have just been working with it, right?
Yeah.
He could have just kept it to himself and made it his own little, theoretical approach and procedure and technique. He could have done his own thing, but he decided instead, like, and this is one of those like quotes that people will either say is true or will they'll deny, but something along the lines of if you it's some I forget, I'm not gonna be able to quote it directly, but something along the
Paraphrase,
lines of if you really want to make money off it, you have to go and make it a religion, right?
So that means he tried a
um
couple things, you know?
yeah.
That's interesting.
So but the church will deny that that was ever said.
Yeah. But he
So
did, I mean, was successful with it it's tax exempt. It's they've been able to do a ton of charitable work, which is nice, but I mean, they're definitely to be as litigious as they are, they're definitely making a good amount of money, and they're collecting some
oh,
portions of people's incomes, right?
let me just go back to the quote. Just so this is what he's famously quoted as saying: "You don't get rich writing science fiction. If you want to get rich, you start a religion." That's a very telling quote right there,
Mhm.
unfortunately.
And I
Uh,
wonder, Dave, if you have access to like Google right now, what was his net worth upon death?
good question.
Because I mean, he was never gonna get. I actually like took a peek at some of that, the science fiction stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's not considered to be one of the greats. I would think.
Hmm.
Um,
He's not up there with it's like Mark Twain and L. Ron Hubbard and Dostoevsky.
well, he left behind an estate valued at about over 26 million at the time of death.
Okay. And then, but the religion is the thing that has the money, you
Hmm.
know? I don't know. It's just interesting. But the other, like, lastly, the sort of, philosophical ideas behind Scientology kind of makes it lean towards religion in some ways. The immortal spiritual being and the goal of spiritual enlightenment. I don't know. That makes it sort of like a religious slash. I guess it doesn't have to be, but I don't know. If you add it all together, Dave, if you had to make a determination for me, and I'll do it, I think because of the isolation, because of the, you know, brainwashing and the secrecy and the exploitation, to me, and the whole feeling of like once you get in, you can't get out, that makes it very culty to me.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as you say something like that, it's like, oh, well,
Hmm.
yeah, that's problematic. Um, I mean, there's elements of both. It, the way that they're structuring it to basically contain people and maintain people and their inability to, you know, kind of be able to talk about their experiences. All of this is problematic because it gives the impression that something is going on
Mhm.
that does they do not want to leave those walls, right? So that right there makes you feel like clearly there's something to hide. There
Going
clearly
clearly,
there hmm?
going clearly. I don't know. A little
Going
play on going
clearly.
clear.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, without saying it, that's kind of, my thoughts around it. It's very problematic.
Yeah. I know. Because like, we've both sort of, I never like left the Catholic Church, I guess. I mean, I haven't been to church regularly in like, I don't know, decades, I guess.
But we have that
But,
freedom.
but we have that freedom, pop in, pop out.
We have the ability
I
of
think that's
choice,
something that could be said.
right? We have the ability of choice. We have, it's I my critiques about this are less about their framework because it is what it is.
It
It
is what
is
it
what it
is.
is. They can believe what they want to believe.
You can
It's
find
more
weird
about
stuff in any religion.
yep,
Yeah.
it's more about the structure and those limitations that I think are the problem.
Yeah.
Take those away, tell
Have
me
at it.
more. Tell me more.
Tell me more. Yeah. Like
I'll get
get
some
me an
shockwaves in
e-meter.
me.
I'm in.
Yeah.
I'm getting
I
in
I
session.
yeah, I mean it's the same. I guess it's the same for some of the cults even we discussed. Like they can believe whatever they want to believe. It's when it's some of like it's the limitations, it's
Hmm.
the way that they're structuring things, it's those things that are the problem. So,
When you're taking away people's choice, you're taking away their identity.
right.
And that's not fair, right? Because that's
Yeah.
how we become who we are, is through the choices that we make. And if you're making your choices based on the religion alone, then it's stolen your identity
Right.
and you've lost individualism. And that's,
You
I
know,
don't know.
we're so far removed from those times of believing that there's one true religion, right?
Hmm.
Nowadays it is considered to be acceptable that numerous religions can exist, so there should be no issue with that. So on that end, on that note, I think that kind of like sums up
Sums it up.
where
Sums
we're
it
at
up.
here.
And stay tuned because we have some cool stuff coming up. I just stumbled upon a new subject that I'm really kind of interested in and gonna work and push Dave towards for it's actually dangerous to even talk about it,
Oh God.
which is intriguing. So stay tuned for that. And Dave, you got anything else besides rate and review and thank you for your continued
No.
support?
Yeah, I would love to see another review. If you haven't done so, share your words, put a review out there, Apple Podcasts or wherever else you can review, send a comment, hit us up. Um, yeah, we would love it. So thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll see you next week. And yeah, have a great night. Peace.
Good night.